So, we are here live with Jacquie Edwards, and Jacquie is an author. She is a rent-to-rent expert. And Jacquie, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Awesome. So yeah, I'm Jacquie Edwards. I am originally from the US. I've been over here in the UK for a while now. I started off as an accountant, but really didn't like accounting very much. So I spent quite a few years actually looking for something else before I finally stumbled on property. Based over in Oxford now, which I absolutely love. And yeah, so my partner and I got into property and we're kind of looking for a way basically to get cash flow. So my main goal was to be able to leave my accounting job, which I absolutely didn't like, and to be able to just have something that gave me a more flexible life where I could be able to travel and just enjoy myself a little bit more. And you always read all of those books that talk about how property is really great for building wealth and doing all those kind of things. So yeah, I did some more research, started going to local property networking meetings, and yeah, kind of stumbled into it and just jumped in and said, all right, here's what we're going to do. I left my accounting job and said I'm giving myself 12 months to build myself a property business, and decided on the rent-to-rent strategy ultimately. I won't go into loads of detail about why I set up that strategy. But yeah, decided on rent-to-rent and was able to build a business and create my financial freedom that way.
That's excellent. I mean, one of the reasons I asked you into the show, and thanks so much for coming out, is because I get asked all the time about rent-to-rents. And I mean, I've built up, quite a good portfolio, and some of that is rent to rent. But you're the master at rent to rent. So I know you said you didn't want to spend a lot of time going into it, but why rent to rent? I mean, what was it that attracted you about that?
For us, the biggest thing was cash flow. We were really, I mean, my main goal was to be able to leave my accounting job, and I needed to have the cash flow to replace my income. So we looked at the strategies that gave us cash flow, and I started kind of before service accommodation was super cool. So we're looking at HMOs. HMOs in Oxford are quite expensive. So we could have maybe bought one. We needed £100,000 deposit. When we got started, I also had no credibility. I'd never done property before. So we were trying to, raise funding, get joint venture partners, even getting a mortgage. We weren't able to because we just had no experience. We didn't own our own property, so there was no real way to raise any funding. So then we said, all right, well, what strategies can we use that we don't need all of that extra funding and to go through all those loops? And that was just rent to rent. So we decided that we would start off with a rent to rent business. The goal was to get to about £100,000 of income within the first 12 months. And that would kind of replace all of my income, give us that flexibility, and then move on to buying properties, because I think the real wealth from properties is from owning them in the long term and getting the capital appreciation. So I think you need to have a mix in your portfolio. So phase 1 was the rent to rents. Phase 2 is to start buying HMOs. And then phase 3 would be to do, whatever flips and start getting bigger capital chunks.
Amazing. And to kind of cut to the chase, you said your goal was to hit £100,000, which is a pretty good goal.
Yeah.
£100,000 is a good salary.
Yeah.
And to do that from scratch when you don't know anything about property in 12 months, I mean, did you achieve it?
Yeah, we did.
High five.
Yes, thank you. It was a very, very busy 12 months.
I bet. Wow.
So it took a couple of months to kind of get everything up and running and to build up the momentum with the marketing and figure out what was going on.
£100,000 profit in 12 months. How many rent-to-rent properties was that?
So we signed 10 contracts.
Great.
Yeah.
And question, how did you find those deals? Not knowing anything about property, I mean, so did you go on any training courses?
Yep. So we did some training. I'm a really big believer in just making sure you're educated and knowing what you're doing before you get started. I mean, I went to university to be an accountant. I learned that.
Did you have loads of money to start with?
We had some. So not loads, because I had to live on that for the next 12 months because I quit my job. How much did you have,
if you don't mind me asking, to start with?
We had enough for our training course, so we did the 12-month mastermind program.
Right.
So that's what I had. And then once we started is where we learned how to kind of raise more funds.
Yeah.
So we were able to use my partner's pension as our investing funds to get started. So we set up a SAS pension and were able to loan half of the money into our property business. So I'm trying to think. It was about £100,000 to get started in the very beginning.
What would you say to somebody because people will always find reasons why something won't work for them. You know, oh, it's different for you. I mean,
yeah.
you didn't have any experience in property.
Yeah.
You had to be creative and use pension to get some
Yeah.
money together. What would you say to someone that says, I haven't got any money at all.
Yeah.
Could I start a rent-to-rent portfolio? Is it possible?
It is. Anything is possible. I think if you haven't got any money, it's all about building up your relationships and really kind of building the team around you and other people that have money, because you're going to need your joint venture partners or you know, your other kind of partners in the business, and it's all about kind of getting out there and meeting as many people as possible. To build those relationships so that you can raise some funds, because you do need some money for any kind of property investing. I mean, you're running a business, you need your business setup costs, and you just need to have that little bit of a cash buffer in case something goes wrong. So no matter what, you need some funds. And if you haven't gotten any of your own, then working with other people is a great way to do it, because there's so many people interested in property investing. And if you know you've got the time and they've got the money but no time, it's a perfect partnership.
Absolutely, and you do need money, but it doesn't have to be your money.
Yeah, exactly.
You can leverage other people's money, time, knowledge.
Yeah.
Excellent. So what advice would you give then to someone? Because I guess if someone had a lot of money,
Yeah.
they probably would not be super inclined to rents necessarily. But if they haven't got a lot of money, if they've got nothing or 15 grand or whatever, then they might be more drawn to it. So the people that are watching this are probably still watching because they're thinking rent to rents, very little or no money down deals, 100 grand a year, cash flow, I'm in.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to those guys? Just their beginning steps,
Yeah.
other than to getting educated.
Yeah, I would say, it's taking action and just getting out there and doing lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of viewings, because a lot of people come to me and they say, oh, rent to rent doesn't work in my area. And my first question is, well, how many properties have you gone out to see? And they're like, oh, I've been to see 3. And I'm like, look, that's just not enough. It's never going to work. You have to just be out there and looking at lots of properties. In the beginning, you're going to sound like an idiot. I sounded like an idiot, no idea what I was talking about. Never done this before. I was talking to landlords, and of course they told me no, because I sounded like a crazy person. But the more you do it and the more practice you get and the more times you explain it and look at them and say, oh, that didn't make sense, I'll change it a little bit next time, I'll change it a little bit next time, and you get more confident, and then it just gets easier and easier and easier. But you have to go through the work in the beginning of building it up, figuring out what you're saying and how to explain it.
So where would you start? You say you view lots of houses. Where would you find those houses to view?
In the beginning, just go out with agents and just look at the properties there.
So you've decided you want to do rent to rent.
Yeah.
You've read your fantastic book,
read my
which,
book.
by the way, if you're watching this and you haven't read Jacquie Edwards' book, you need to read it on Amazon. Little plug for you. No, it is great.
Yeah.
You've read the book. You're excited. You want to do rent to rent. You've got a little amount of money or none. You go on Rightmove. You start looking for properties that maybe they potentially lend themselves to be a HMO, perhaps?
Yeah. So, if you haven't got loads of money, going to agents is probably the quickest way to get started, because everything else, you need a little bit of advertising funds. So going to the agents is a perfect way to get started. And it's just looking at properties that could potentially be an HMO, or maybe even properties that are already HMOs and maybe they're just not in the greatest condition, or they're not maximizing the rent that they can get. And it's finding maybe 3-bed properties that have 2 reception rooms that you could turn those into bedrooms. So it's looking for where you can add value to a property, or where you can add value to kind of that owner, that landlord's life. And then just setting up the viewing with the agent. And again, you have to practice talking to them. You're not going to know exactly what to say the very first time you speak with them. But the more you do it, and especially with agents, the more properties you see, the more you get to understand your local area as well, and see what types of properties there are, what kind of prices there are, and what different ranges and different conditions. So in the first few months, for me, it's just a lot of learning and just getting used to everything and building up that momentum, really. So you might not get any deals for like that first month, maybe that first 2 months, but you'll have learned so much, and then you'll have the confidence, you'll understand your area, you'll understand the prices, and you'll kind of keep going from there.
Absolutely, that's brilliant advice. Just do it. Get out there and view the houses.
Yeah.
And these are the houses that you're going to be looking at. Presumably they're houses that are up for rent, not for sale.
Yes.
And then you're going to say to the agent,
so my normal kind of story, or my business pitch, because I feel like rent to rent is a proper property business, So I tell them my business is I'm a relocation agent. I work with companies in the local area to help house their employees. So that's what my business is to them, because that way with an agent, I'm not competing with them. I'm not saying, oh, I'm another local landlord. I've got loads of spare tenants. I want to put them in this house. The agent's kind of like, oh, I work with landlords and tenants. What are you doing? So my suggestion is kind of having that specific business of what are you doing that's not the same as the agent, but it's a proper business that you can explain to somebody and build it up from there.
That's excellent. I mean, I must say I do admire the fact that you managed to build that kind of rapport with agents where they were giving you properties.
Yeah.
I've personally found it really difficult dealing with agents because
so,
they just don't get it,
Yeah.
and they are threatened and they don't understand, and when you confuse them, you lose them. So my rent-to-rents, I've usually found them direct to landlord. So I mean, what advice would you give about rapport building with agents?
Yeah.
I mean, have you got anything?
So most of mine have been direct to landlord as well. So just a couple with agents, and it just takes time and building up that trust with them. It doesn't happen overnight. I'd say start with the smaller agencies because they don't have as many hoops to jump through. The bigger ones have, their legal department and the processes that they have to follow and the contracts they have to use, and they can't step outside of that, and they're just not interested. The smaller ones, if you can talk to kind of that owner, director, operator person and build that relationship so that they can see what's in it for them as well, because you're more of joint venturing with them than just kind of using them as a sourcer almost. So they can see that they can make some money. It makes their life easier. As soon as they've got a property, they can just pass it to you. They make their commission. Everybody's happy. Yeah. But it just takes time to build up that relationship. But once you've got it, then you've got that sourcing partner that can just keep bringing properties your way.
That's really where you want to you want to be. Where is the best, or what's the best way to find landlords direct?
Yeah. So for me, the thing that worked the best for me was getting the list of licensed HMOs from the council and just sending them letters. Because, that was my target. I wanted to have HMOs, especially in my area. And it's growing more now with the additional licensing requirements and the additional planning and Article 4 issues. So starting with a property that was already an HMO, it had everything it already needed at the license, the planning permission, the fire safety stuff. Yeah. And the owners were open to HMOs. They already kind of knew what was going on. So it was targeting them, finding the ones that were really struggling, didn't know how to properly manage their property or had some other problem, and just being able to help solve it.
That's excellent. Fantastic. So when did you start out doing this?
So it's been just about 4 years now.
4 years. So what does your strategy consist of now? Do you still do rent to rents?
We do. We don't do loads of advertising. So most of ours come through word of mouth now, or properties. Our landlords have more properties and they pass them on to us. So I've got a small team that manages the rent to rent portfolio. So we're pretty happy with how that's going. And don't do loads of advertising. We've bought a couple of our own properties as well now. So we own a few in Oxford and in some of the surrounding areas. And recently, our newest strategy is we've just bought 27 acres of land where we are going to start a farm. So we're not going to do a big development on it. We're going to have our own alpaca farm. So that was kind of one of our dreams when we first got started. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. But that's the thing. Property is a vehicle. Yeah. And being able to have your own rent-to-rent portfolio, you've bought a couple of houses as investments. Now you can start to do that kind of thing.
Exactly. And we've got kind of the connections we need because it's basically just a proper blank field. So we're thinking of doing a bit of container storage on there. So I'm going to meet with a few people that do that strategy that I've met through the different property networks. And we might do some glamping pods and stuff. But I know the people to kind of help us with that now. So It's awesome.
So what would you say your average week looks like now?
So it's relatively relaxed. I probably spend about 10 hours a week working on my property business, so on the managing the actual properties, because I've got a team that does it. So most of it is, meeting with them, making sure they're on track and that they don't have any huge questions. The rest of the time I do coaching and mentoring. So I've got quite a few online programs and working with kind of private clients. And then it's just relaxing and setting up the farm is basically what's taking up some time now. Yeah.
That's great. I heard a quote and it said, if you do in the early days what most people aren't prepared to, then you'll be able to do in the later days what most people can't do.
Exactly.
And the fact that you've got to that place is fantastic.
Because it was hard work in the beginning. I spent a lot of time. I mean, my social life went down. I was spending more time, working on my property business than I had been on my normal job. My friends had no idea what on earth I was doing. They thought I was a crazy person. But now I've got all my time back, basically. So we travel quite a bit. I'm able to kind of go away and be away for weeks at a time, and everything still runs without me.
Because the great thing about rent to rents, I guess, is the fact that, and mostly in property, is you do it once and you get paid ongoing.
Yeah.
So it's all about cash flow, passive income, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
So what are your plans for the future then, besides the farm?
Yeah, that's pretty much the big one. Yeah, because there's so many things. I mean, 27 acres is pretty huge. There's so many different things we can do on there. So yeah, we've got 8 alpacas now. We've got to build up to 30 is the goal, and we've got bunnies, and we're gonna do the glamping pods. It's gonna be awesome. So that's I do get bored quite easily, so I might be into something else in a year, but right now that's the big plan. And it's setting up that lifestyle business for us was the goal. So that's the lifestyle we're gonna be living.
Congratulations. I know you've been successful in what you've done, but if you were to speak to your 4 years younger self who was just finishing up with accountancy, what one piece of advice would you give them?
I would say focus. So when I first got started, before we really decided on rent to rent, I tried to do every property strategy. So I did a training course, one of those 3-day courses where you learn all the strategies. And I was like, I'm a property investor. I'm going to do all of them. And I spent 6 months running around like a crazy person trying to do every strategy, and I got absolutely nowhere. And it wasn't until I said, all right, what are my goals? What am I focusing on? That I was able to kind of build up that momentum and get a proper business going.
That's great.
Yeah.
Great piece of advice. Fantastic. And today you've been with my certified partners.
Yes.
How was that?
Oh, that was excellent. It's a really good group of people. So we covered a good in-depth session on rent to rent. They asked loads of really, really good questions. And I think they went away with a lot of information to actually get out there and start getting the rent to rent deals.
They're good implementers, as you probably picked up.
I saw that because loads of them have done loads of deals and they're getting lots of sourcing, and
they're
it's
smashing
awesome.
it. So I really
I'm
appreciate
looking forward to speaking to them again in a couple
of
weeks and
3
seeing
weeks
how
time.
many.
And now we're off to the Property Investor Circle.
Yes.
Which is really going to be exciting. So thanks so much for coming on the show. How would we contact you? I mean, I would say, whoever's watching this, you need to get Jackie's book. So if you just search, what's the name of the book?
Search Rent to Rent on Amazon and my books will come up. I've got 2 of them. Yeah.
Great. And how would anyone get in touch with you if they want to, email you or give you a shout out? Where's the best place to find you?
The best place to find me is probably renttorentacademy.co.uk is my main rent to rent website. And that's got kind of a contact form, and it's got loads and loads of information on rent to rent on there. So that's the best place to go. So renttorentacademy.co.uk.
Excellent. Renttorentacademy.co.uk. Check out Jacquie Edwards. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you so much.
With you as well.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome.
Thanks.